Captain Tae-ho stood in front of the giant screen on his spaceship bridge. The massive alien fleet stretched out in all directions around him. 300 huge warships floated in the darkness of space. Each ship was as big as a small moon there. Black metal hulls were covered with deadly weapons. Plasma cannons stuck out like spikes. Missile launchers sat ready to fire planet-killing bombs. For 5 long years, this Krellian fleet had moved from world to world, conquering everything in their path. No alien race had ever been able to stop them. The bridge was filled with alien crew members working at their stations. Their skin was covered in scales that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, most of them showed the calm blue of routine work. Captain Tae-ho was different from his crew. He was bigger and stronger, with 4 eyes instead of 2. His mandibles clicked when he was thinking or when he found something funny. He had sharp claws that could cut through metal, and his voice was deep and scary. Today felt like any other day of conquest. The fleet was moving toward a new sector of the galaxy where they would find more worlds to take over, more alien races to defeat, more resources to steal for the Krellian Empire. But something was different this time. They had received word that one of the races in this sector wanted to fight back communications. Officer Veltar turned away from his station. His 4 eyes were blinking very fast, which meant he was confused. "Or worried, sir," he said in his strange alien voice. "We are getting a message from the humans. They want to talk about surrender." Terms Tae-ho made a clicking sound with his mandibles. The humans were new to space travel. They had only learned how to fly faster than light 50 years ago. That was nothing compared to the thousands of years other races had been exploring the galaxy. Their little blue planet called Earth sat far away on the edge of the galaxy. Most alien races barely knew they existed. "Tell me more about these humans," Tae-ho said. He walked over to look at the data on Veltar's screen. "What do we know about their military strength?" "The humans are a young species." "Sir?" Veltar replied, reading from his computer. "They have only colonized about 20 planets. Their technology is far behind ours. They use simple chemical rockets and basic energy weapons. Nothing that could threaten our fleet." Tae-ho nodded. This sounded normal. Most young races tried to negotiate when they saw the Krellian fleet coming. Some offered tribute, some begged for mercy, some tried to make deals. All of them eventually surrendered when they realized how hopeless fighting would be. "How many warships are they sending to meet us?" Tae-ho asked. He expected to hear about some small, pathetic defense fleet. Maybe 50 ships if they were lucky. Most young races could barely build 10 decent warships. Veltar looked at his screen again. His scales started changing from blue to purple, which meant he was very confused. "Sir, they are only sending 1 ship, just 1 single vessel." The entire bridge went completely quiet. Every alien crew member stopped working and stared at their captain. Even the ship's computer systems seemed to pause in surprise. Tae-ho had conquered 47 different alien races in his long career. Not one of them had ever been stupid enough to send just 1 ship against his massive fleet. 1 ship. Tae-ho repeated slowly. "Are you completely sure about this?" "Maybe it is. Just a messenger ship coming to arrange the surrender." "No, sir," Veltar said, checking his instruments again. "It is broadcasting on military frequencies like a warship. It is asking for formal combat negotiations. The ship says its name is Soul Promise. It claims to represent the complete military response of all humanity." Loud laughter filled the bridge. Junior officers pointed at their screens where they could see a single tiny dot against the stars. Compared to the huge Krellian dreadnoughts, it looked like a small pebble next to giant mountains. Some of the crew members were laughing so hard they could barely breathe. "Maybe humans do not know how to count," said Weapons Master Zixthon, wiping tears from his eyes. "Or perhaps they are planning some kind of joke ceremony before they surrender." But Captain Tae-ho was not laughing. Something felt wrong about this situation. In all his years of conquest, he had learned that every alien race fought in different ways. The rock people of granite. 7 had used their entire planets as weapons, throwing them at enemy fleets. The gas beings of the Spiral Nebula had turned whole star systems into deadly traps. What if humans had some trick they were hiding? Show me this human ship on the main screen, he ordered. The giant view screen changed to show the approaching vessel. It was indeed very small, maybe 2 kilometers long, while Krellian ships measured 50 kilometers each. But something looked strange about it. The hull seemed to move and shift like it was alive. Weird energy patterns flickered across its surface like lightning. The metal looked different too, not like normal ship armor, but something that seemed to flow and change. What are the life signs on that ship? Tejo asked Scanner. Technician Morgul checked his instruments. Sir, this is very odd. I am only reading 1 life sign aboard that vessel. 1 single human. The bridge became quiet again, but this time it was not because of laughter, it was because of growing worry. Person controlling an entire warship was strange enough, but what kind of person would fly alone into a battle against 300 enemy ships? Either the human was completely insane, or they knew something. The Krellians did not. Sir, should we prepare? For battle stations, asked the tactical officer. Not yet, Tejo replied. He was studying the strange ship on his screen more carefully. The way it moved was wrong. It did not fly like a normal spaceship. Instead, it seemed to glide through space like a living creature. The energy patterns on its hull were getting brighter and more complex. Let me talk to this human pilot, he said. I want to understand what they think they can accomplish. The communication system crackled to life. A human face appeared on the screen. It was smaller than Krellian faces, with only 2 eyes and no scales. The human looked female with dark hair and strange glowing blue eyes. She was sitting in what looked like a normal pilot chair, but thousands of thin cables were connected to her head and spine. This is Commander Ji Woo of the Soul Promise, she said in a calm voice. I assume you are the leader of this fleet. I am Captain Tejo of the Krellian Imperial Navy, he replied. Human, you are facing 300 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Do you understand how hopeless your situation is? Ji Woo smiled, and her blue eyes seemed to glow brighter. Oh, I understand perfectly, Captain, but I think you are the one who does not understand the situation. You see 1 ship and think you are facing 1 ship, but appearances can be very misleading. What do you mean by that? Tejo demanded. The human woman leaned back in her strange chair. You will find out soon enough, Captain. But first, let me ask you a question. When you look at my ship, what exactly do you think you are seeing? Tejo studied the vessel on his screen again. The energy patterns were moving faster now, and the hull seemed to be changing shape slightly. I see a small warship with 1 insane pilot who thinks she can fight an entire fleet. Ji Woo laughed, and the sound sent chills down Tejo's spine. Captain, you have conquered many races, but you have never met humans before. We do not build ships the way other species do. We do not fight the way other species fight. And we definitely do not think the way other species think. Then how do you fight human? You are about to find out, she replied. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Captain Tejo stared at the small ship on his screen. Something was very wrong here, but he could not figure out what it was. The human seemed too confident, too calm for someone facing impossible odds. Either she was completely crazy, or she knew something he did not, and in his experience, the second option was usually more dangerous than the first. Inside, the Soul Promise Commander Ji Woo sat in what looked like an ordinary pilot seat, but nothing about her situation was ordinary at all. Thousands of thin silver cables connected directly to ports along her spine and the back of her skull. The cables pulsed with soft blue light as information flowed back and forth between her brain and the ship. Her eyes glowed with the same blue energy, and when she blinked, streams of data appeared in her vision like a computer screen ship status. Report, she thought. Without speaking out loud, all systems working perfectly. Ji Woo came the immediate reply. But the voice was not from speakers or headphones. It was her own voice speaking directly inside her mind. Biological parts running at maximum. Efficiency mechanical systems fully connected and ready. We are completely joined as one being, Ji Woo. Smiled a cold smile that would have scared the aliens if they could see it. The Krellian fleet had no idea what they were really facing, while other alien races built spaceships as separate tools to climb inside and control humans had chosen a completely different path. The Soul Promise was not just a ship that Ji Woo was piloting, it was a living extension of her own body and mind. The ship's hull was grown from special human cells that had been changed and improved by scientists. These biological materials were stronger than any metal the galaxy had ever seen, but they could also heal themselves and change shape when needed. The ship's computer was not artificial intelligence like other races used. Instead, it was Ji Woo's own consciousness that had been expanded and enhanced through technology. When she wanted the ship to move, she did not push buttons or pull levers. She simply thought about moving, and the ship obeyed just like her own arms and legs would. The weapons systems were connected directly to her nervous system. When she felt angry, the ship's guns would charge automatically. When she felt threatened, the shields would strengthen themselves. The ship could feel pain when it was damaged, and Ji Woo would know exactly where the hurt was coming from. Every part of the vessel was as much a part of her body as her heart or lungs. Incoming message from the alien. Fleet, the ship mine, reported to her. Put them through, she thought. The ugly face of Captain Tae-ho appeared on her display screen. His 4 eyes showed both amusement and confusion at the same time. His sharp mandibles clicked together as he spoke. Human. Ship. This is Captain Tae-ho of the Krellian Imperial Fleet. You are facing impossible odds against our 300 warships. We offer you the chance to surrender with honor. Your bravery in coming here alone will be remembered in our records, Ji. Woo leaned back in her chair and let her consciousness spread throughout every part of the Soul Promise. She could feel the power flowing through the ship's veins like her own blood. She could sense every weapon, every shield generator, every piece of the hull as if it were her own skin. Captain Tae-ho. I appreciate your kind offer, she said. But I have a much better idea. Why do you not surrender to me instead? The alien Captain Mandibles began clicking very rapidly, which meant he was extremely upset. Human. You are piloting one tiny ship against 300 of our finest warships. Are you completely out of your mind? Maybe Ji Woo replied with a wide grin. But here is something important about humans, Captain. We do not build ships to sit inside and control. We become the ships themselves. And you are about to learn why that difference changes everything. She ended the transmission and stretched her consciousness throughout every single part of the Soul Promise. The ship responded by releasing special combat drugs into her bloodstream. Her reaction time increased 10 times faster than normal. Her vision expanded so she could see in every direction around the ship at once. Her mind began processing battle calculations faster than the most advanced computers. The biological parts of the ship started changing too. The hull became harder and stronger. Weapon ports opened up along the surface that had been invisible before. Special organs inside the ship began producing ammunition and energy. The Soul Promise transformed from what looked like a simple vessel into something that was part machine, part living creature, and part extension of human will, ready for full combat integration. She whispered. The ship responded by flooding her system with even more enhancement chemicals. Her heartbeat slowed down but became much stronger. Her breathing deepened as her lungs processed oxygen more efficiently. Her brain started working so fast that everything around her seemed to move in slow motion. Through the neural connection, she could feel every single part of the ship as clearly as her own fingers and toes. The hull sensors became her skin. The engine became her muscles. The weapons became her claws and teeth. She was no longer G-Wo-O sitting in a ship. She had become something new, a fusion of human consciousness and advanced technology that was greater than either part alone. The aliens thought they were facing one small ship with one pilot, but they were actually about to fight something the galaxy had never seen before. A single human being who had become a warship, a consciousness that could think and react and adapt faster than any crew of separate individuals. A weapon that combined human creativity and intuition with technology beyond anything other races had imagined. Ji-Woo felt the alien ships moving into attack formation through her sensor arrays. She sensed their weapons charging through electromagnetic detection. She knew exactly what they were planning. Before they did it themselves, because the ship allowed her to process information in ways no biological brain could handle alone. The Krellian fleet was preparing to fire everything they had at her. They thought their overwhelming firepower would end the battle quickly. But they did not understand that Ji-Woo was not trying to survive their attack. She was planning to use their own aggression against them. Human creativity had always found ways to turn disadvantages into advantages. Human. History was full of small forces defeating larger ones through intelligence and adaptation. The Soul Promise represented the ultimate evolution of that principle. One person with the right technology could become more powerful than entire fleets, if they were willing to think differently than everyone else. Through the ship's sensors, Ji-Woo watched the alien weapons charging with deadly energy. She felt their targeting systems locking onto her position. She sensed the moment when Captain Tae-Ho would give the order to fire. But instead of fear or worry, she felt only excitement. Finally, she would get to show the galaxy what humans were really capable of when they stopped thinking like other species and started thinking like themselves. The Soul Promise hummed with anticipation as biological and mechanical systems prepared for the demonstration that would change how every alien race thought about Earth and its children. The battle was about to begin, and Ji-Woo could hardly wait. All ships moved to battle formation. 7. Captain Tae-Ho commanded from his bridge. The massive Krellian fleet moved through space like a well-trained army. The biggest dreadnought warships took positions at the front while smaller support vessels formed protective screens behind them. Fighter squadrons launched from huge carrier ships filling the darkness with thousands of small deadly shapes that buzzed around like angry insects. Captain Tae-Ho watched the tactical display as his 300 ships arranged themselves in perfect attack formation. Every vessel knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had used this same strategy to conquer 47 different alien races. The formation had never failed them before. Target. The human ship with every weapon we have, Tae-Ho ordered. Let us end this foolish battle quickly so we can move on to more important business. 300 warships slowly turned their weapons toward the tiny Soul Promise. Plasma cannons began charging. With enough energy to melt mountains, missile tubes loaded with warheads that could crack planets in half, energy weapons that could boil oceans powered up to maximum strength. The combined firepower of the entire fleet was enough to destroy anything that had ever been built by any known species. Fire Tae-Ho commanded space itself seemed to explode into light. Thousands of energy beams streaked through the darkness like bolts of lightning. Missiles raced toward their target, trailing fire behind them. The barrage was so bright and intense that the bridge crew had to shield their eyes. The attack was powerful enough to have destroyed an entire moon and turned it into space dust. But when the brilliant light faded away, the Soul Promise was still floating in exactly the same place, completely undamaged. Impossible, breathed Weapons Master Zix Thon. Nothing in the galaxy could survive that much firepower. Scan the area for pieces of the ship, Tae-Ho ordered. The human vessel must have been completely destroyed. Check for any debris or wreckage, But the sensor technicians found something that made no sense at all. The human ship had not just survived the massive attack, it had not been hit by even a single shot. Every energy beam had missed. Every missile had flown past without exploding. Every weapon in the fleet had somehow failed to hit one small target. How is this possible? Taeho demanded. What kind of technology allows a ship to become invisible? Inside the Soul Promise, Ji Woo was no longer completely human. Her consciousness had expanded to fill every part of the living ship. She existed in a strange state where her thoughts became actions instantly. When the alien weapons had fired, she had not seen the attack coming. Through her eyes, she had felt it through the ship's sensors like someone throwing rocks at her own body. Dodging the barrage had been as natural as stepping out of the way of falling objects. The ship had twisted through space like a dancer moving between raindrops. The Soul Promise flowed around energy beams with impossible grace, where normal pilots had to see threats, make decisions, and then react. Ji Woo simply moved by instinct. Human intuition, guided technology that was beyond anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. "My turn," she whispered. The Soul Promise began to change in ways that would have terrified the aliens if they had understood what they were seeing. The smooth hull started to ripple like water. New weapon systems emerged from what had looked like plain metal. But these were not normal ship weapons, like plasma cannons or missile launchers. They were extensions of human creativity and violence, designed by minds that had spent thousands of years finding new ways to fight and survive. Instead of firing directly at the alien ships, Ji Woo aimed her weapons at the empty space between them. Her guns fired something that looked like harmless silver mist. The aliens barely noticed the strange substance as it drifted through space toward their fleet. Then the mist reached the alien ships and began to eat them alive. Nanobots, each one smaller than a virus, spread across the hulls of the Krellian warships. They did not just destroy whatever they touched, they learned from it, adapted to it, and made copies of themselves. Within seconds, tiny holes appeared in the mighty alien armor. Atmosphere began venting into space as the microscopic machines found every weakness in the ship's design and exploited it. Damage report. Taeho screamed as his own flagship began to shake and shudder. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 15, his damage control officer reported in panic. "The nanobots are spreading faster than our repair systems can handle. They are learning how to defeat our countermeasures in real time. Sir, they are adapting to everything we try to stop them with." Taeho watched in complete horror as 12 of his enormous dreadnoughts simply fell apart. Their hulls dissolved like sugar in acid as the nanobots consumed everything they could reach. The tiny human ship had destroyed more Krellian vessels in 30 seconds than the fleet had lost in 5 years of conquering other worlds. The nanobots were not just destroying the ships randomly, they were learning from each vessel they attacked. By the time they reached the next ship, they had already figured out how to overcome that ship's defenses faster. The microscopic weapons became more efficient with every target they consumed. "Retreat to safe distance," Taeho ordered, as more of his ships began breaking apart. "All vessels fall back and regroup immediately." The surviving alien ships tried to escape the spreading nanobots, but the microscopic weapons followed them through space like a cloud of death. Some ships tried to burn the nanobots off their hulls with their own weapons, but that only made the situation worse. The nanobots learned from the energy attacks and became resistant to them as the Krellian fleet pulled away from the battle area. Ji Woo smiled inside her neural connection with the Soul Promise. She had barely begun to show the aliens what humans could do when they stopped thinking like other species. The nanobots had been just the first demonstration, a simple example of how human technology worked differently than anything else in the galaxy. Through her ship sensors, she watched the alien fleet trying to reorganize itself. Captain Taeho was probably wondering how one small ship had defeated part of his mighty armada. But he still did not understand the real situation. He was still thinking like every other alien commander who had faced humans. He was still assuming that the sole promise was just a ship with weapons, instead of what it really was, a single human consciousness that had become something far more dangerous than any normal warship could ever be. And Ji Woo was just getting started with showing him exactly what that meant for his chances of survival. The battle had been raging for 6 long hours, and Captain Taeho's once mighty fleet was completely broken. Of his original 300 proud warships, only 73 remained, and most of those were badly damaged. The human swarm danced through space around them like deadly butterflies that could not be caught or destroyed. But Captain Taeho had not become a fleet commander by giving up when things looked bad. He had risen through the ranks by finding ways to win even impossible battles. He had one final strategy left, something that had never failed against any enemy the Krellians had ever faced. All remaining ships prepare for ramming speed, he commanded over the communication system. If we cannot defeat this enemy with our weapons, then we will destroy them with the mass of our hulls. Each of our dreadnoughts weighs 50 times more than their small vessels. We will crush them through pure physical force. His officers looked uncertain about this desperate plan, but they followed orders anyway. The surviving Krellian ships formed up for one final charge against the human swarm. Their engines roared to maximum power as they accelerated toward the enemy vessels like giant hammers trying to smash tiny nails. It should have worked. Perfectly, mass and momentum were universal laws that applied everywhere in the galaxy. The alien ships were enormous compared to the small human vessels. The impact should have been like giant boulders smashing through thin paper. Nothing in physics should have been able to stop such an attack. Instead, something completely impossible happened. As the Krellian ships reached ramming distance, the human swarm began to move in perfect coordination, instead of scattering in panic or trying to dodge. Out of the way, the small ships started flowing together like drops of water, combining into larger puddles. In just seconds, they had reformed into bigger vessels, each one exactly the right size and mass to match the approaching alien ships. "What are they doing now?" Taeho demanded in confusion and growing fear. His question was answered when the reformed human ships did not try to avoid the ramming attack at all. Instead, they met it head-on with no attempt to escape. But at the exact moment of impact, something extraordinary happened. The human vessels seemed to wrap around the alien ships like liquid metal flowing over solid rock, absorbing all the momentum instead of being destroyed by it inside the Soul Promise collective consciousness. Ji Woo experienced the collision from 1,000 different viewpoints all at the same time. She felt the alien ships strike her vessels, and felt the crushing force that should have destroyed everything she was. But humans had learned something that no other species in the galaxy had ever figured out. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is not to fight back at all, but to absorb the enemy's strength and make it your own power instead. The human ship's biological hulls flowed around the Krellian vessels like living tissue wrapping around foreign objects. Instead of being destroyed by the tremendous impact they used, the aliens' own momentum to merge with them completely. In just minutes, every surviving Krellian ship found itself wrapped in a cocoon of human biotechnology that pulsed with strange energy. "Hull breach on all decks," reported Taeho damage control officer in a voice filled with panic. "The human ships are somehow bonding directly with our hull structure. They are integrating with all our computer systems. Sir, they are becoming part of our ship." Taeho watched in complete horror as human biotechnology spread through his flagship like some kind of living infection, but it was not destroying the ship's systems the way he expected. Instead, it was improving them, making them work better than they ever had before. Engine efficiency increased dramatically. Weapons became more accurate than ever. Life support systems began working perfectly for the first time. "In years, what do you want from us?" He transmitted desperately to the human fleet. Ji Woo voice came from his own ship's speakers, now because her consciousness had spread into every Krellian computer system. I want you to understand something very important. Captain Tae-ho, you came here to conquer humanity because you thought we were weak and helpless. You saw one ship approaching your fleet and assumed we were fools who did not know how to count. But humans do not think like other species in this galaxy. Then what exactly are you? The alien captain asked. We are the species that looked at the entire galaxy and decided we could do things better than everyone else. Ji-woo replied. You build ships to ride inside like passengers, but we become the ships themselves. You fight with separate individuals who have to communicate with each other, but we fight as a connected whole while still remaining individuals. You conquer by destroying everything you encounter, but we conquer by absorbing and improving whatever we find. Through the merged computer systems, Captain Tae-ho could feel his crew confusion slowly turning into amazement. The human technology was not enslaving them or forcing them to obey commands. Instead, it was offering them something they had never experienced before. True connection with other minds, unity of purpose, while still allowing them to remain themselves as individuals. Your fleet is now part of me. Ji-woo continued, but your people are still your people with their own thoughts and feelings. I am offering you a choice, Captain. You can return to your empire and tell them that humanity cannot be conquered through violence and force, or you can stay here with us and help build something better than either of our species could ever create working alone. For the first time in his entire military career, Captain Tae-ho found himself facing an enemy who had defeated him through transformation rather than destruction. The human had not killed his crew or destroyed his ships. Instead, she had made them into something new and possibly better than what they had been before. Through the neural connection, he could feel his officers' and crew members' thoughts. They were confused by all the changes that had happened, but they were also amazed by their new capabilities. Working together with human biotechnology, they could process information faster than ever before. They could communicate more clearly with each other and solve problems that would have been impossible to handle before. Despite everything that had happened, despite losing most of his fleet and seeing his remaining ships absorbed by alien technology, Captain Tae-ho found himself genuinely curious about what this strange partnership might lead to. The humans had shown him possibilities he had never even dreamed of, and he wanted to understand more about what they were really offering. 3 weeks after the impossible battle, Captain Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his transformed flagship, watching his crew work together with human biotechnology in perfect harmony. The ship was still clearly Krellian in design, but it was also something completely new. A hybrid creation that combined two very different civilizations into something stronger than either could ever be alone. Status report, he requested, and the answer came not just from his officers, but from the ship itself. Through the human neural network that now connected everything together, all systems working at optimal levels reported Lieutenant Soo-jin, the human technician, who had been assigned to help with the integration process. The biomechanical components have completely merged with your existing technology. Your ships are now operating at 300% greater efficiency than they were before. Captain Tae-ho nodded slowly. In just 3 weeks, he had learned more about advanced technology and new ways of thinking than he had discovered in 20 years of conquest across the galaxy. The humans had not destroyed his fleet or enslaved his people. Instead, they had evolved everything into something that nobody had ever imagined was possible. Transmission signal came through from the Krellian Empire capital world. Emperor Voxhal himself appeared on the main communication screen. His multiple eyes were blazing with fury, and his scales had turned bright red with anger. Captain Tae-ho explained. Yourself immediately, he demanded. Our deep space monitoring stations show that your fleet has been altered in ways we do not understand. You were supposed to conquer these humans, not collaborate with them. Before Captain Tae-ho could find words to respond, Ji-woo voice came through the ship's communication system. Her consciousness now existed throughout the entire hybrid fleet, able to appear and speak wherever she was needed. Most Emperor Voxhal, I am Commander Ji Woo of Earth Defense Force, she said calmly. Your captain has learned something very important about humanity. We do not fight wars in order to destroy our enemies. We fight to transform conflicts into cooperation between different peoples. The Emperor's scales shifted to an even, angrier shade of red humans. You have somehow corrupted my fleet and turned them against their own empire. This is clearly an act of war against the Krellian people, No Ji Woo replied without any anger in her voice. This is an offer of partnership and mutual benefit. Your captain ships are not damaged or enslaved by our technology. They have been improved beyond what they were before. His crew members are not prisoners or slaves. They are connected to something much larger than themselves, while still remaining exactly who they always were. Through the neural connection that now linked all the ships together, Captain Tae-ho could feel his crew members' thoughts and emotions. They were confused by all the changes that had happened so quickly, but they were also amazed and excited by their new capabilities. Working with human biotechnology, they could process information much faster than before, communicate more clearly with each other, and solve complex problems they never could have handled in the past. Emperor, with all due respect, Captain Tae-ho said carefully, choosing his words. Perhaps we should seriously consider what these humans are offering to us. In just 3 weeks, my fleet has become more capable and effective than it ever was in all our years of service. We are still proudly Krellian in every way that matters, but we are also something more than we used to be. Traitor Emperor Vox, Hal hissed through the communication link. You have been corrupted and poisoned. By alien influence that has twisted your mind, I am sending the entire home fleet to your location immediately. They will destroy you and cleanse this contamination from our empire forever. The transmission ended, suddenly leaving an uncomfortable silence on the bridge of the flagship. Sir asked Communications Officer Veltar. What should we do when the home fleet arrives with orders to destroy us? Captain Tae-ho looked around at his crew members, then at the human displays that showed all the hybrid technology that had made them stronger and more capable than ever before. He thought about the choice that Commander Ji Woo had offered him weeks ago. Return to the Empire with news of defeat, or stay and help build something better than. Either species could create working separately. We show them, he said, finally what humans really sent when they dispatched just one ship that looked like an ordinary vessel. We demonstrate to them that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is not something that destroys everything it encounters, but something that transforms and improves everything it touches. Through the neural link that connected all their minds, Captain Tae-ho felt Ji Woo approval and agreement. He also sensed his crew growing excitement about the challenge ahead. They were no longer just Krellian conquerors following orders from their empire. They were not human defenders protecting their home world either. They had become something entirely new. The first example of what the galaxy could become when different species chose cooperation and mutual improvement instead of conquest and destruction, when the massive Krellian home fleet arrived 2 months later with 5,000 warships ready for battle. They expected to find a corrupted fleet that needed to be destroyed to protect the Empire. Instead, they discovered a demonstration of what the entire galaxy could become when intelligent species stopped fighting each other and started working together to build something better. The home fleet commanders wondered why they had never thought to send just one ship that could become whatever it needed to be, until they saw with their own eyes what such an approach could accomplish when guided by human creativity and determination. As Captain Tae-ho watched the approaching home fleet on his display screens, he smiled for the first time in years. He was no longer afraid of the coming confrontation, because he understood something the other Krellian commanders did not yet realize. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from showing them a better way to exist in the universe. The humans had taught him that lesson, and now it was his turn to share that knowledge with the rest of his people, whether they wanted to learn it or not. The galaxy was about to change in ways nobody could have predicted, and Captain Tay-Ho was proud to be part of that transformation. Captain Tay-Ho stared at the tactical display screen with growing fear in his 4 eyes. In just a few minutes, the single human ship had destroyed 15 of his finest dreadnoughts and badly damaged 30 others. His fleet still had 300 ships, but doubt had begun to creep into every officer's mind like a poison. "Sir, we could ask for help from the home fleet," suggested his tactical officer. "Maybe we should call for reinforcements from the capital reinforcements." Tai-Ho's voice was sharp with anger. "Against one human ship, the Empire would remove me from command for being a coward." But even as he spoke the words, he wondered if calling for help might actually be the smart thing to do. New message coming from the human vessel reported. "Communications officer." Veltar put it on the main screen. Tai-Ho ordered. Ji-Woo face appeared, but something had changed about her appearance. Her eyes glowed much brighter now with blue energy, and when she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere, at once instead of just from the speakers. "Captain Tai-Ho, I gave you a fair chance to surrender peacefully. You chose violence instead. Now I will show you why that was a very bad mistake. Human, you may have destroyed some of our ships with your strange weapons," Tai-Ho replied, "but you are still facing 300 ships against your one. Even your mysterious technology cannot defeat us all." Ji-Woo's smile was as cold as the empty space between stars. "Captain, you still do not understand the real situation. You are not fighting against one ship. You never were." Behind her on the screen, the Soul Promise began to change in ways that made the alien bridge crew gasp in shock. The ship's hull split open like a giant flower blooming. But what came out was not machinery or weapons. It was thousands of smaller ships, each one no bigger than a fighter craft, but moving with the same impossible grace as their mother vessel. "You see," Ji-Woo continued, "humans learned a very long time ago that the best way to survive is to adapt and change. We do not build one big ship that can be destroyed by enemy fire. We build one ship that becomes many ships, that can become one ship again, whenever we need them to. The small vessels spread out through space, like a school of metallic fish swimming through dark water. Each tiny ship carried a perfect copy of Ji-Woo consciousness, her memories, her skills, and her knowledge. They were all her, and she was all of them at the same time, where the aliens saw thousands. Of separate targets, Ji-Woo existed as a single mind, controlling everything simultaneously. "Impossible," Tai-Ho whispered in shock. "No living being can control that many ships at the same time. It would drive any pilot completely insane. No being that you have ever met before." Ji-Woo replied, "But humans do not fight like other species. Captain, we do not separate the pilot from the ship or the mind from the machine or the individual from the group. We become whatever we need to become to win." Swarm attacked with a fury that took the Krellian fleet completely by surprise. It was unlike any space battle the aliens had ever fought in their long history of conquest. Instead of organized formations following planned tactics, they faced something that moved like a single living organism. The small human ships flowed around alien weapons fire, like water flowing around stones. They struck from impossible angles, disappeared when the aliens tried to target them, and appeared somewhere else entirely. Each small vessel was like a single finger on Ji-Woo's expanded body. When she decided to attack a Krellian cruiser, dozens of her ships moved together as one mind directing many hands. They did not need to talk to each other or coordinate their movements, because they were the same person, thinking the same thoughts at exactly the same time. The aliens tried desperately to change their tactics. But how do you fight an enemy that thinks with 1,000 minds but acts as one being? Every time they targeted, a group of ships, the swarm, flowed away like smoke and struck from a completely different direction. Every time they tried to predict the attack pattern, Ji-Woo changed it simply by thinking different thoughts. The small ships did not fight like normal fighters either. Instead of using regular weapons, they released more clouds of nanobots that spread from ship to ship like a disease. Each vessel they touched became weaker, while the nanobots became stronger and smarter. The microscopic weapons learned from every attack and shared that knowledge instantly with all the other nanobots in the swarm all ships. Focus all your fire on the original vessel, Tai-Ho ordered desperately. If we can destroy the main ship, maybe the smaller ones will be disabled. But when the alien weapons turned toward where the sole promise had been, they found only empty space. The mothership had dissolved completely into the swarm, and now every small vessel was both an individual fighter and a part of the greater whole. There was no main target to destroy because every ship was equally important. The swarm moved through the Krellian fleet like antibodies destroying an infection in a living body. Wherever the aliens were strongest, the human ships concentrated their attacks. Wherever the aliens tried to retreat, the swarm was already waiting for them. It was like fighting against their own shadow, something that knew every move they would make before they made it. Within the first hour, Captain Tai-Ho Mighty fleet was reduced from 300 ships to 200, then 150, then 100. The human swarm consumed them relentlessly, never tiring, never slowing down, never making the same mistake twice. Some alien ships tried to ram the small human vessels, thinking their greater size and mass would crush the smaller craft. But when they made contact, the human ships simply flowed around them like liquid mercury, absorbing the impact and using the aliens' own momentum against them. Other ships tried to self-destruct, hoping to take some of the swarm with them, but the nanobots had learned to detect such tactics, and the human vessels simply moved away at the last second, leaving the aliens to destroy only empty space. Captain Tai-Ho realized with growing horror that he was not just losing a battle, he was watching the complete destruction of everything he had believed about warfare and conquest. The humans had not defeated his fleet through superior firepower or better tactics. They had won by becoming something entirely different from what he understood as possible, and through it all, Ji-Woo consciousness expanded across thousands of ships, felt every victory as a personal triumph. She was no longer one human fighting for survival. She had become something new, something that combined human creativity with technology beyond the dreams of any other species in the galaxy. The battle was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The only question now was whether any of the Krellian ships would survive to tell their empire what they had encountered in the darkness between the stars.